The end is coming, but we're here to stay. Project Dorothy was written and directed by George Henry Horton. He's a Who. Do 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 do. If you know what MST3K episode that line is from, I love you guys. He's done a few projects. Check out his IMDb page for the full list of his work, and also written by Ryan Scaringe, who helped produce The Boy Behind the Door and other projects. I remember enjoying The Boy Behind the Door, all things considered, kind of minimalist, but honestly some pretty good acting and a little bit of suspense built. And speaking of suspense, we see the suspense building between James, played by Tim DeZarn, Zano, a place, here to play his top 10 country hit. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. A lot of MST3K references so far, but James is on the older side, shall we say. Him and Blake, played by Adam Badron, who, after let's just say a robbery goes absolutely tits up, they're on the run. Well, James not necessarily, more on the limp because he got shot in the leg. And they're out wherever the fuck they're out. I don't actually understand how they managed to get to where they're at, given the fact that they tried to rob a bank. We find this out in flashbacks, and they somehow end up almost in an open field. But they happen upon this abandoned facility, this wide open area with a lot of construction equipment, this big old warehouse, and also this warehouse happens to house a long dormant AI program named Dorothy, voiced by the incredibly talented and the incredibly gorgeous Danielle Harris, who, I mean, after kind of reviving her career with the Rob Zombie Halloween movie, even though she did star in one of the earlier Halloween movies as a child, she has been in a lot of horror projects since, and anytime Danielle Harris is in a project, I'm absolutely there. Sure, have some of her projects maybe, been absolutely up to snuff? No, but she's good, she's delightful, and I'll watch just about anything she's in. And she has some fun voicing Dorothy here, but we don't actually get to hear Dorothy for a while. We just see James and Blake. Sounds like a buddy cop drama from the 80s. They just wander around this facility, and we find out through flashbacks what happened and how this job went tits up. And then eventually Dorothy shows up, and it turns out Dorothy is all-powerful. And there is something that she needs from these two guys to find out a way to expand her reach and get out into the world after being trapped there for, well, about 30-something years. So yeah, that's about it. As far as minimalist horror goes, this is pretty minimalist. And I found myself rooting for the AI. Nothing against the actors in particular, but James and Blake weren't exactly very interesting. I was rooting for the goddamn AI to do something and expand and get out and become like Skynet and become self-aware. And there isn't a lot to spoil in this because it's two guys in a facility. We get some flashbacks as to what happened to the original crew. And then that's it. Danielle Harris is having fun as Dorothy. I like the mocking line. She has a great voice. Great goddamn voice. And she is at least having fun here. The two guys playing James and Blake, they're not bad. They're just not very defined characters, and you don't really have a reason to root for them. It just ends up being basically minimalist horror with a few decent moments, mainly thanks to Danielle Harris just having a blast as Dorothy. Yeah, it's low budget. Yeah, it is what it is. I paid a few bucks to watch it on Amazon. It's not awful, but I have seen I've seen better, but I've also seen a whole lot worse. The effort was there. I just think as far as, how the film played out, it was more of a short film concept than it was an actual feature length. And even then, it was 78 minutes with end credits. So it was about as, close to a, feature length as you could possibly get. That being said, let me get into spoilers here in just a bit. It's on Amazon for a few bucks if you want to check it out. And if you're a Danielle Harris fan, you will have a blast. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, yeah. The reason that James got shot is because Blake got greedy. He stole a necklace. Also, there's this device that is an electronic type device that apparently houses really powerful technology that Dorothy wants to use to get out of the, archaic tech that she's in and get out into this and expand herself into the world. And they have to hide from Dorothy's eyes, which she has cameras all over the goddamn place. This Metal Gear Solid PS1, PS2 stuff. Again, minimalist and low budget. I get it. Minimalist is a word that I've been using a lot here. And that's not meant necessarily as an insult. But it just is very much just streamlined, I guess would be a better way to say it. And once we find that out, once we find out about this device, James, even with his leg wound that eventually is going to develop sepsis, he ends up finding a working monitor. There's all these smashed, electronics and all these smashed computer monitors from this facility when it was done in the 80s. And he finds out from this Dr. Jillian, who I believe is played by Olivia Scott, and I gotta say she's quite lovely. She is. She's there. There's some other people running around. They're freaking out. That Dorothy was supposed. It's pretty much like the first AI, or at least one of the first AIs, at least as far as I can tell. All powerful, but kind of, but not really. Dorothy plays games with them. She also controls some forklifts that go where she can't go. Forklifts really can't go much of anywhere. How are these forklifts operational still? I guess powered through Ghost AI. And then, yeah, Dorothy is all aware after they turn the power back on. The possessed forklifts kind of made me laugh. It made me think that we were getting a Carnosaur situation. If you remember that movie, boy howdy, did it exist. And James ends up kind of freaking out, hearing voices of the old crew, seeing all the bodies and everything, because Dr. Scott said she was going to try to burn this, or Dr. Jillian, Olivia Scott, was going to try to burn this facility down. So they're in the basement, that is, James and Blake. They have a heart-to-heart. James knows he's basically fucked. He's like, hey, here's an idea. She can't hear us down here, or maybe she can. We don't really know, because they're just kind of playing around with this concept. They end up basically coming up with a way to trick by, let's put the device in this bag, and let's trick this AI program that apparently is easy to trick with just a switcheroo. So then James basically ends up getting incapacitated, shall we say. But he happens to have lighter fluid and a sledgehammer. Why don't you call my name? And he destroys the device. But he doesn't. Dorothy just freaks out. He starts destroying these things. Just beating up all this stuff with a sledgehammer. Again, why don't you call his name? And then Blake escapes. But he has a device. But because James knew that he never needed him and all this stuff and everything. And I was rooting for the AI to get out, actually. I think that would have been a much better way to go about it, because it really was hard to root for these two particular guys. That being said, Blake escapes. James freaks out. Dorothy, blah, 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 all that, and goes away. But then we hear Dorothy laugh at the end of the movie, meaning that maybe she found a way to get into that particular device, despite the fact it wasn't plugged in. It gets a C. The effort was there. It's okay. I have certainly seen a lot worse. If it hadn't been for Danielle Harris voicing Dorothy, I probably wouldn't have cared as much for it as I did. Nevertheless, C. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Whitland. I'll see you soon.